I'm King Link, and it's currently July 4th, which can only mean it's time for the Humble Choice July 2024 review. This month we got a couple of big games and some surprises from smaller titles, but before we get into that, I'll remind you that I play each game on stream for an hour. I get to check out how it plays, what they're about, and who's gonna like them, and now I'm here to tell you what I found. It's a hard job, but someone's gotta do it. With that said, it's a pretty solid month with several good titles, actually quite a few of them are sequels to games that were in Humble Choices from long ago. Longtime fans might already recognize this game when I checked it out on Game Pass, though I will admit I got a sense of deja vu while playing it because I kind of forgot I covered it before. Let's get started with what's on the screen. A Plague Tale Requiem. It's a cinematic sequel to a great game. Plague Tale Requiem continues the story from A Plague Tale Innocence. Honestly, this is a bit hard to talk about because so much of this game is a spoiler for that previous title, and A Plague Tale Innocence is extremely good, so I'll say that players who want to check this one out should start by playing through the first game rather than read a synopsis. As for everything else, A Plague Tale Requiem delivers. In the first hour, there's good storytelling, interesting areas, and characters. Some large areas show the difference in size and scale between the titles. There's still a lot of darkness, but Plague Tale Requiem does a better job balancing that with some lighter moments, which only makes the game that much darker when it goes there. At the same time, I will say I did notice some performance issues, and unlike many games, I didn't turn this game just up to the highest settings, but used the default or recommended settings, and still had some issues. This was a complaint at launch, and I think the game is still a bit of a performance hog. Also, the story has not got the best reception. I enjoyed what I've seen while playing it, but I have to acknowledge that a number of times people have said that this is a step back in the narrative. Maybe I don't believe it, but who knows. Pick this up if you played the original game. Seriously, go play that first. It was in Humble Choice a couple years ago, and it's currently in the Steam summer sale for $8. It's going to be worth playing that before this, and after that, if you want more, well, now you know where to find it.
Bloodthirsty fuckers.
Ghostrunner 2, A Wild Ninja Ride. Ghostrunner 2 is a continuation where the player once again runs through levels, eliminating enemies with their sword and a couple of slick powers. There's a strong focus on blocking or parrying and using a mid-air dash move that when done right will make you feel like an invincible ninja. However, when you struggle, and honestly I struggled a lot, it can be a little bit brutal. I don't know if the levels are weaker or if I was just missing something, but I do feel like it was more of a user error than bad game design. My fault. In addition, there are supposedly performance issues. I didn't have any that I noticed, but I do recognize that a strong, consistent criticism of the game exists and know people who have actually had these issues. I'll just throw out I run everything off of an M.2 SSD, and maybe that's why I'm okay, but truthfully, I have no clue. Pick this up if you like the original game. Now, some fans don't enjoy this one as much as the first, usually complaining about the open world section. I've heard that's much later in the game, but it's still the same fast-paced combat. It's a game that makes you feel like you want to retry, and even as the first boss destroyed me over 50 times, I felt like I was learning the fight. I may have been just shoving my face through the difficulty wall, but I did eventually beat him.
Bugs are going for the base. Standard procedure is to keep the gate shut until there are 0 hostiles in the area.
Oh, hell. Guess you're doing this in the
Starship Troopers, Terran Command, a traditional RTS. Looking at Starship Troopers, I'm taken back to the 1990s when the RTS genre was relatively simple. There was a good, solid single-player campaign that was enjoyable on its own. The games did hold the player's hand, usually a bit too much, and do so here, but the experience was tackling different obstacles that the computer created, and that's also here. Every level here also has 2 bonus achievements. The main gameplay loop is about requisitioning soldiers and building defenses. You play as the humans fighting against these giant hordes of bugs in the Starship Trooper franchise, and this is more based on the movies than the book. However, I'm not kidding about the hand-holding. At least in the first hour, the game lays out your battle plan for you. In addition, the voice work sounds okay, but there's no emotion. If you're on an alien world fighting against bugs, maybe don't sound like you're sitting in a studio reading lines off a paper in a comfy chair, and before you ask, I stand when I read my lines. I also will say I would have liked to play as the aliens for some variety, but you can't in this title. Pick this up because you want to be reminded of how RTSs used to be made. That's not necessarily a value judgment though. I do fondly remember the genre when they made games like this, but I also can understand why the genre isn't made as much anymore, or why this progression fell out of style. It is a bit too rigid at times. Would you like to know more? Sticky Business, a very uncreative sticker business. Sticky Business has players starting a sticker company, creating stickers by combining other stickers together, and then selling them to the public, who just seems to come rushing in and wanting to buy your goods no matter what. There's no risk of loss, and people just seem to line up no matter what you create, so it's more of a cozy game than a capitalism simulator. Cozy capitalism? Maybe that's a good moniker for it. I was excited to play Sticky Business because I have recently been building model kits and could think of a lot of great sticker designs that I'd want to buy, especially water slides. The problem is there's not a lot of freedom in creation, or there's a lot of freedom but the tools are all stickers themselves, so rather than writing down words or drawing a design, you're building stickers out of other stickers, and honestly that stifles creativity. I think there's a problem in the developer's mentality. This is a guess, but perhaps the developers were afraid of what people might create if they were given unlimited freedom, but the problem is once you're afraid of what people might create, you stifle their creative freedom by limiting their choices. There's no alphabet letters to add a new word, for instance. I just wanted a sticker that said F91, which is the Gundam classification, but the best I could do at first was the F that you see, which sold well because, like I said, everything sells. There are limited gaming icons and no fantasy or sci-fi choices. 4 types of sushi and 3 boba drinks were the best of what I found, but that's it. This isn't a problem with what's already in the game, let me just be clear about that. The choices available are acceptable and perfectly fine. The problem is, this isn't designing a new sticker, this is combining already existing stickers and then reselling them, which really limits what players can do. Pick this up if you want something your kid can play and pretend they're running a sticker business. However, if you're hoping for any challenge, you're playing the wrong game. And honestly, I'd probably rather my kid open up Krita or GIMP and just play with the actual art tools, and maybe decide that they can create something special and open up an actual sticker business if they wanted. My daughter actually did that for a while with jewelry, but I think she would quickly get bored with this because it feels limiting, and without workshop support or a way to create new ideas without a lot of work, this is kind of the whole experience. I know I've gone on a long time and I apologize about that, but I did forget that I was going to be recording this footage for the video and drawing my juvenile stickers, but do note that my fart sticker actually sold shockingly well. Some people wanted 12 or 14 of just that one. Seriously, what's wrong with people? Zoeti. Card-based roguelites. I guess we're doing these again. Zoeti feels like someone wanted to make a game like Slay the Spire, but also not. You have typical poker hands, which you can equip a skill to, so that when you make a full house you might trigger a big attack, 3 of a kind might be a buff, and a single card might end up being a shield. There's also a lot more variety, because instead of a full house, those cards could be more useful as a pair and a 3 of a kind, or all single cards. Conceptually, a lot of this game worked well, and there are a few clever moments rather than building out larger and larger decks. This is designed more to get multiple skills, artifacts, and usable items, each making you more powerful, and the first game I played was over 5 dungeons telling a bit of a story. There are also 2 additional stories, 2 additional characters, and 5 difficulty levels where normal is the bottom. It also looks like something from your upgrades might carry over once you finish, but I didn't get that far. This all sounds great, but there's something about this game that kind of nags at me. I think the game is a bit easier than it should be, and of course I could increase the difficulty, but it feels more focused on the journey than the roguelite aspects of the game. Defense felt very easy to pump up, and I'm not sure how often I would want to replay the same mission structure, but perhaps I'm just standing in the tutorial section viewing the game, so maybe the game will open up a bit more in a couple hours. Pick this up if you want another card-based roguelite. We used to get so many of these that I think it was overkill. Now Humble is being more selective. This one is good, but I do think there's still better. I think Aces and Adventures from a couple months ago pushes this concept further, but this one will still be a good game to pick up if you're a fan of those card-based roguelites, like I said. Though, do notice I'm not saying deck building because that moniker really doesn't fit this gameplay.
Stop hogging the stage, Piggy. The stars have arrived.
It's showtime.
Prepare to be devoured by darkness.
Figment 2, Creed Valley. Inside Out the game. Figment is a series set in a human brain. Players take on the role of Dusty, a character who has to fight his way through the mind. On his trip, he'll fight the fears of the man whose mind he's inhabiting as he deals with buying a house or work-life balance. However, the focus is on the innovative ideas at play as the character explores the mind. These can be anything from opening and closing a character's mind to progress and talk to various creatures who will say something different, or to fighting the embodiment of the fear of the dark. There are a lot of clever concepts here, and the fact that each boss encounter has a unique song is good. Still, Figment 2 had a very nasty habit of taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. The first boss and song were excellent, as was the second. However, the mayor's song just felt like exposition, kind of annoying and tedious. Many puzzles are good, but every once in a while, a puzzle has a lot of backtracking. The experience, though, is mostly good, but mostly, not always. Also, there is a lack of variety in bosses, and the whole game is about only 5 hours long. The only actual negative thing I'd really say about this game though, is it just tosses you in the middle of the story. Perhaps the game is assuming you played the first title to completion, or maybe just doesn't have the best opening, but it's not a huge criticism. You'll get the idea of what's going on quickly. Pick this up if you want a novel or interesting world to explore with some clever ideas, but are willing to put up with maybe a weaker package to get at those moments of inspiration the developers had. I like this game quite a bit, but I can also say it didn't fire on all cylinders like it should have. Heretic Fork, a tower defense roguelite that impresses. Heretic Fork starts with the game talking about attacking souls in hell. The levels appear to be based on the 7 deadly sins, and the game starts with the look of an OS. The main gameplay loop is mostly letting you defend your base from the souls automatically, and then using a few cards in between rounds. However, about halfway through my first attempt at this game, how I viewed the gameplay changed. I realized there's an extremely high polish on this gameplay loop to the point I'm kind of shocked about it. Players can combine cards into a more powerful version or get rid of them as they want, and normally throwing out a card is something I would struggle with, but here it was easy to toss out a card I didn't think I had a use for and felt that I could highly optimize my deck. Even now, all I'm thinking about is I want to go back and play one more game, that lovely phrase. Oh, and there's also awesome heavy metal playing the whole time, and there's also several goals and achievements to chase if that's what you're into as well. That being said, I've only played an hour, and even a bad roguelite should hold your attention that much. The graphics here though are pretty weak in my opinion. I couldn't tell what a lot of these guys are. There is a lot of stuff to unlock, but the first character, the intern, had no perks or negatives, so I haven't dived into the different character classes. Also, I died at the same place in both games. Perhaps that's just a huge difficulty spike, but I also think I just need, well, one more game to figure it out. That old chestnut. Pick this up if you like deck builders and roguelites. This does have a bit of a tower defense concept, but the actual gameplay is more focused on refining your deck and incremental benefits over time as you build a stronger base. Though I'm not kidding, I am looking forward to going back and playing this. That's something I haven't felt in actually quite a while. Who knows, this game might have been the one that broke through my gaming malaise. Hyperviolent. System Shock, but not System Shock. Hyperviolent took inspiration from System Shock. I think that's obvious. It's a shooter with graphics like the original System Shock. It has all the staples: inventory management, a need to manipulate switches, horror elements, and a space station that players have to explore. There are log messages that NPC have recorded before their death, and there's strange occurrences on this station where players will have to find out what's going on while fighting off an almost zombie-like horde. Early on, players will struggle for resources, but once I found the shotgun, I also felt very powerful and able to take on almost everything in the game. As a huge fan of System Shock, I regret to inform you most of what I said is not System Shock. The biggest problem here is that it's a level-based shooter, not an immersive sim, and also really lacks the psychological part of the horror or the amazing antagonist that would be comparable to Shodan. In addition, because this is early access, the early levels have strange pacing, where the first starts with a lot of story and then kind of skips it for the second half of that level, and the second level seems to drop the story completely. The newer levels do appear to have more story, but honestly that kind of just harms the pacing more because it's a tonal shift from the first set of levels. The text size on the screen is also pretty small, so trying to play this on a TV screen made it difficult or impossible to read that text, and since there's only limited voice acting on a couple messages, you need to be able to read. Ultimately, I feel like Hyperviolent is torn between wanting to be a boomer shooter or an immersive sim, but the biggest problem is due to early access experience, it's all going to be inconsistent, and who knows if or when the final game will be out. Pick this up if you want a long shot. Listen, I don't think that early access games should be in humble, at least not without a clear release date planned, but it sounds like there's a rough development here as well. The original planned release date was early 2024. This game hasn't been updated in about 6 months. The developer claimed that there was an update coming 2 months ago, and then said it's going to take more time recently. It appears that they're working on a second game as well, and this game is already in humble before it's even released. I want to talk about all these things because I think it helps make a decision, but all of these are red flags to me. And still, if you like what you see, I mean, give it a shot. Maybe it's going to pay off and I'll be proven wrong, but even then, I feel like it won't be as polished due to that early access approach of releasing levels on a schedule. And that's where we end this. Like usual, I'm left with a weaker title, but let's play it so you can see more of it. I keep forgetting to say this, but if you do want to see more footage of the games, please check out my Twitch channel, put a link in the description. I have saved the videos for however long Twitch allows, I think 90 days, and you can see my honest, usually stupid initial reactions to these games, and this month I cosplay as Lobster Link, or I just got sunburned. Or instead, watch a Let's Play. Listen, this is a 60-second overview, it's not supposed to be a full tutorial. With that said, it's time for Is There Any Deal, and I can say I'm not expecting too much because it is the Steam sale currently going on, and looking at this, yeah, I was right to be a little nervous. So, Zoeti has a good value, and shockingly Starship Troopers does as well. You know, let's take a second look at this, because something is always off with those Voodoo prices. I don't know that site well. But when you go to Plague Tale Requiem here, it says historic low of $17.50. Then let's take a quick peek at Ghostrunner, that's $9, not $2. Now, I'm not looking at Voodoo prices there, but Voodoo's ultra deals that you're seeing happened over a year ago, so I don't know, maybe there's a trick they're pulling to list all those prices. In addition to the games bundled here, Hyperviolence was on Fanaticals, and Zoeti was on Humble's Deck Builders. Annoying, but you know, I'll live. Now with that said, let's talk about the bundle, and I get the feeling we're going to hear that a lot of people are pausing on this one. Plague Tale Requiem is more of a story-based game. Ghostrunner had me struggling and probably needs that pro gamer mentality to master it, or I just suck. And Starship Troopers is great, but how many RTS fans are there, and do they not have this one already? This is going to be good for people who want it, but many people are not represented in these three genres. Roguelites are back on the menu, of course, with Zoeti and Heretic Fork. Both of those are card-based, and yet both of them are quite different from the, let's just say, Slay the Spire deck-building genre, you know what I mean. And now I've probably been butchering Zoeti's name, I know I haven't been constant, and I apologize, that's not intentional. Doing a little research, I have heard that if you add an S at the end, it's Zoetis for an animal company, and after hearing that, I'm kind of stuck saying whatever I do. It just doesn't sound right. Let's get to the tier list, and as always, this is not based on actual value, but enjoyment level, where you get that $12 worth of entertainment out of the game. AKA, you can't say I'm wrong, because this is a meaningless metric. We have 4 tiers: misses, averages, strong contenders, and oh yeah, games worth the full bundle price. So let's dive in, and yeah, nothing in misses. Listen, the averages probably could slip here, but I do think they're what people call games. I know, I'm so specific. They're worth playing for someone, so we'll just move on. The bottom of the average tier though is Hyperviolent. I am prepared to be wrong and the full release comes out tomorrow and there's no news to tell me that it's happening. And also I'm prepared that it's an amazing game and not suffering from early actionitis, a condition I just diagnosed it with, and I'll apologize next month in the video. But I'm also going to take a silent victory lap if I'm right and that doesn't happen. As it is now, it's average, not really a recommendation. And speaking of non-recommendations, sticky business. Let me make my Gundam stickers. Damn it! I mean, listen, I've seen some amazing work that people have spent a lot of time in this game making, but even so, there's no benefit in the game to putting in all that extra effort. This game makes me think of Suit Chart from long ago, and I want to give that game another chance and put in the effort there, but not in this game because why suffer with the bad tools? Krita, GIMP, or just Paint.net. Go for it, guys. And here we are after 2 tiers. You know, let me just say, I don't truly believe this is the halfway point for these tiers, but technically 2 down, 2 to go. We have a lot in the strong contenders tier, so we'll start with Figment 2. I like the bosses, but I also think this is a game that will annoy me just enough to make me struggle to fully enjoy it. Also, I did mention I do feel a bit lost. I don't know if that's from not playing the first game or if this just has a weird opening. Still, there's something good in here, it just might take a little effort to get to. Following that is Zoeti. Interesting game, but I think it's a bit overshadowed in this bundle from a later title. The concept is good, but I do feel way too powerful in the game. We'll see, it probably would be worth playing through, and there's enough variety that someone could put in a good amount of time with the multiple characters and 3 different stories. And then there's Starship Troopers. Listen, I'm a fan of the book, I used to like the movies before reading the book, and this is good, but just good. I wish the voice actors went all out and pushed this to be a little bit more over-the-top parody of the movie, and both the movie and book say something deeper about why people join the military or jingoism. Here, this is simply going to be an RTS. Still, I do feel like this one will be enjoyable while playing through all the missions, but it's only standing on the shoulders of greatness. Finally, there's Heretic Fork, and this is borderline for me. This one has me super excited. I swear I'll be playing more while this video is rendering and maybe beyond. It's really that good in my book, but it's also a smaller title and maybe I'll get bored of it quicker than I'm expecting. Still, this one has me hyped and that's not happened in a long while. And this is what we have after the strong contenders. I'll be honest, the bottom 3 of the strong contenders tier shifted places every time I thought or talked about them, but Heretic Fork has always been in that top slot. And finally we have the headliners. I mean, games worth the full bundle price, and yeah, that's how this goes this month. A little bias on display, but the bottom is Ghostrunner 2. It's a high-octane game. If you play it right, speedrunners will love this, and it's just insane when it works. I just really struggled to get that flow going, and other players will probably do it far better than me, so it's a great game, just it's going to challenge players a bit. And finally we have Plague Tale Requiem. I did play this for Xbox Game Pass, but I also held off because I hadn't beaten that first game, so this game does look incredible even if it has some performance issues and the story here is compelling. This is a major title in my book and I'm glad to add it to my library. And that's what I have for a humble choice today, and here's the final tier list. And normally we look at some other bundles if people don't want this bundle. I don't really feel anything exciting on Humble Choice, but there is this Muv Love. Honestly, I hate how that name feels to say, but that's all visual novels. It sounds a little bit insane, but it's also just visual novels. On the other hand, if you want to spend your money on something else, I will mention that the Steam sale is going on and would recommend checking that out. Kingdom Hearts just came out on Steam. That's good to see, a bit overpriced, but I'm sure most of you will want to go up and buy a game that you're thinking about right now. Just imagine I mention it right here. Go get Hades 2. Actually, my choice is not on sale, but it's still good. With that said, like, subscribe, and all the other crap I'm supposed to say at the beginning of a video to drive engagement. Controversial view to drive angry comments. Gundam models and Dynasty Warrior Gundam are the only good things to come out of that franchise, but they're still very good. And here are 2 videos, blah blah blah. And you know, let's just add, be good to each other. See you next time.